there, writers and muse daters. I am super excited to be here today with Steve Cummins. He is a member of the Writing Gym. He has just completed the VIP program where writers finish their novels. And I'm really excited to share so many of his amazing celebrations with all of you today. So welcome, Steve.
Thank you very much.
So just to give us context, tell us a little bit about your writing life. What is it that you are writing?
Well, so I'm writing a fantasy novel that, so a medieval setting that is, I think of it as a fantasy novel that is not, it's not plot driven, it's more character driven, and really it's touching on themes that are more than ever relevant to us today, as far as themes of sexual inequality and racial inequality. And we have some main characters who struggle with those issues.
Great. And you know, you and I got on the phone, I don't know, a couple of months ago. And paint a picture for people who are watching and listening. What did life look like for you then, as far as where you were with this novel?
So this novel is something I've been working on. I'm 48 years old, and I started writing this novel when I was 22. It was very different then. You know, one major difference was the protagonist was a male and not a female. So my central character changed, but and it became more thoughtful, obviously, if you work on something that long, you start, you know, it originally was just this fantasy world I created, and this, you know, wanted to have some adventures in this world, and then it became a story with meaning, because I couldn't just write that little adventure story, and I couldn't sit in my chair long enough. And so that novel sat neglected for a good decade before I picked it up again in my 30s and got it like halfway done, and then again set it aside for like 5 years before you and I started talking. So it was about done when you and I started talking.
Wow. And so what were some of the things that felt like they were getting in the way of completing that novel?
Yeah, it was just really hard to make the time to write, to fit that into my schedule. In some of your stuff, you talk about overcoming fear, and that didn't resonate with me initially, because I thought, whatever, you know, I'm not afraid to write. That's silly. But actually, yeah, when you get down to it, if you're really honest with yourself, yeah, I was afraid to write because, gosh, I sit down on a Saturday afternoon to write for 4 hours, and oh my gosh, I can't remember where the characters were on this particular section, and I spend 2 hours just reacquainting myself with what I need to do before I can write, and then I get stuck after an hour, right? And so I had this 4 hour block that ended up like I really got 45 minutes of writing done, and I got frustrated with that kind of experience that I was having.
Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of writers can relate to that. And you know, I don't know everything about your personal life, but I'm going to make a guess that your 20s and 30s looked a lot like most of us, right? You've got a lot more free time in your 20s, and then you start to make bigger and bigger commitments as you move into your late 20s and 30s. And so by the time you get to a certain age, as the French say, right, we've got a lot of commitments. And so, I mean, I know that you have taken on a lot of projects in your personal life right now. You know, you've kind of got like an intersection of a lot of big moments in your life. And yet you were able to find this time to write, which is a huge celebration. So first, I want to commend you on that. You know, I'll spill the beans a little bit. I know you just got a new house and you moved and you've got some construction going on there and changes in your family. And yet there was time to write. And that's a huge celebration. But, you know, let's peel back the secret for people who are listening and watching. How did you find the time?
Yeah, so I have a spouse who's pretty darn supportive, so that's helpful. Yeah, you touched on some of the, I mean, of all the times that I was going to choose to do this, this was the worst time. We did move, and then we decided that the house we moved into needed to have pretty much a whole makeover. So we've got people in and out all the time doing that. We started fostering 2 brothers last June, and we're adopting them now. It's going to be finalized here in a month or so, but hey, here's one of them. And you know, that's going from not ever being parents before to being fostering to adopt parents in the last year. That was a huge change to my schedule and a big, just a whole bunch of changes for my wife and me to navigate. The job, that wasn't steady anymore because my business had been acquired. So I had a whole bunch of stuff going on with that. So it really was a very unpredictable time. And I don't know why I chose to do it, except that I guess I was just saying, wow, these things will make me shelve that novel again for another 2 years. I'll be talking about finishing that novel in 2023. I have friends I've talked to about this novel that are like, please, you're never going to finish. Or my parents knew that I had dreams of being an author, but come on. They're probably thinking, okay, we're going to die without seeing that happen. So I just had to do it. And then for finding the time to write, I find morning as what I said. I'm going to do mornings all the time. I mean, that's successful, and definitely my brain is clearer in the morning. So I tried doing that, and mostly successful writing some time in the mornings. What I found was that, okay, I'm not getting that hour every morning like I thought I was. So I only got a half hour this morning. So I'll find 45 minutes at the evening after the kids are in bed. I just gave myself that weekly goal that I needed to be, an hour a day is what I needed to get. And if I missed a day, then that hour just carried over to the next time. So some weeks were maybe 3 hours on a Saturday and 4 hours on a Sunday and only 2 hours during the week, whatever. I just made sure I got at least an hour a day.
That's great. And so part of what I'm hearing in that, Steve, is about the power of decision, right? Like we are always going to have moments where this is happening and that's happening. And I mean, we're in a pandemic, so it is a unique time. There are lots of unique things that have happened with, recessions or floods or hurricanes, or things happen in life that are beyond our circumstances or, beyond our control. So taking that power back for ourselves and making the decision to say, I'm going to make this happen, come hell or high water, pardon my French, that's my decision, and I'm going to stand in that power. It sounds like that was really the catalyst for change and being able to finally finish the book.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Making the time, and yeah, to your point, it helps that we're in a pandemic. And so I can't have the temptation of going to the gym to work out because there's no gym to work out at. I've got a running gym instead.
That's right. That's right. So through this process, and I know that you had worked with another editor before I met you at a class that I taught at a local library in Colorado. So you had been, accessing resources to try to help yourself. What was it about the support in the writing gym that got you over the hump that had really been in your life for quite some time?
So, so I think one thing I like about the writing gym, there's several things, I'm just saying one, but I think it was helpful having the two different weekly sessions, the mindset session with Gretchen, where just talking about the writing experience, right? We're not talking about details of what I'm working on. And my initial thought before this would have been like, come on, I just need to write. I don't even talk about writing. That's just wasting time. Come on, like I can just use that half hour to write. But no, it does free up the mindset for creativity. And then the sessions with you where that is more hands-on, and we can talk through, I'm really having a problem. I'm kind of stuck here. And you can throw out some ideas to be like, well, have you thought about this? Or maybe you do this, or maybe you just giving me some tactics, which are helpful. So the two together, right? I think the tactics are very helpful. I also think the mindset's very helpful. One by itself would not be as effective. Definitely there's a catalyst there.
That's a really powerful message. And thank you for that feedback, because definitely, it was with great intent that I put it together that way. And you made a really interesting point, right? So I studied all of this neuroscience to figure out how people are creative and how they can really be in creative flow. And then I created this program. And I think you're right. I think a lot of people would look at it and be like, afraid to write. I'm not afraid to write. Like, let me have at it. And it happens for a lot of writers who go through the program that eventually they come to a point where like, actually, maybe there's my little Achilles heel. There it is. And the fact that we can be honest about that and say, look, we've all got them. Even friends of mine who have been multiple, like 24 best-selling, like New York Times best-selling books, honest to God, will come to me and say, gosh, I've got a new book deal and I just don't know what it is I'm going to write. And I think, my goodness, if New York Times bestselling authors think this, then none of us have a get out of jail free card. We're all going to have an Achilles heel. So, for people out there who might be saying, yeah, that's not for me. I don't want to talk about my mindset. Like, talk a little bit about your experience and some of the celebrations that you have there, things that you were able to see or face that you hadn't ever thought of before that really made a change for you.
Yeah, so it was more about, you said earlier today here about taking control. And so that is a theme with the mindset, and it's both relinquishing control and thereby taking control. So what Gretchen helped me understand with some of our calls is there are circumstances that come up and your best laid plans just don't go, because life gets in the way. And so instead of letting that be what defeats me, recognizing the parts that can't be controlled, and well, what do it's just okay. Well, okay, so how are you going to respond? What are you going to do? She's a question, right? It's, what are you going to do this week to realize your dream of being a published author? And so, okay, I get out of the details of what happened, what didn't go well last week, and now I can just focus on what I'm going to do this week. So it's getting rid of the resentment for the things that happened that are outside of my control, and just focusing on what can I control for my next steps.
That's really beautiful. Wow. That's such a great celebration. And we are here to celebrate you. So let's talk about you. What are some of the things, you've been in this 8-week program, you've worked through, you finished your book. Thinking back to the person you were previous to joining the writing gym, what are some of the things you see as big celebrations for yourself that we can celebrate with you?
Well, so I'm just excited about the book, right? I mean, and it wasn't that I wasn't excited about the book before, but I was only excited at intervals. I mean, I'm just truly excited to have this thing. It's essentially, it's about a 93% finish rate right now. There are a couple things that definitely need to be in there, but that's a huge feeling of accomplishment. And when I think about what polishing needs to be done and what missing scenes just need to be added in there, that's not a daunting thing. That's something that I can think of honestly with some joy to it. So I think that's the biggest change is rediscovering the fun of writing. And then along with that, long term, that can be, I can do that. That's not just some dream I gave up on 15 years ago. That's a dream that I can actually work on to realize.
That is an amazing celebration, because it's not just about a book, which is huge, but it's also about, your heart, your soul, the core of your being, finding joy in this world. And that, to me, that's one of the biggest blessings that we can have, is to find fun and joy and creative flow. That's a really good place to live.
Yeah, for sure.
That's amazing. So you're talking about some of the celebrations that you have from your experience. And it is a program that gets results, but it's also a community. So talk a little bit about some of your celebrations around the kind of community that you were able to participate in during your time in the writing gym.
Okay, yeah, and I'm bad, because I would say, oh yeah, yes, Gretchen, I have these celebrations to post. I'll go do that, and then I would forget to go to the Facebook page and post my celebrations. But by going in there, what I did see in the different posts on the page, etc., it's cool because the writing is such a solitary thing, and I'm an extroverted person. And oftentimes I think through talking through some ideas with somebody is how I can really think and articulate things. And so that's one of the reasons I had to do this program to finish a book, is that I could never, being more people focused and not wanting to sit in front of a computer screen for so long, I had trouble just buckling down to do the work. So it is cool seeing these other people working. I also not just seeing things that people post, but also with the coaching sessions with Gretchen, the mindset sessions, those aren't just one-on-one, they're small groups. So my first 4 weeks, I was in there with another person, Jill, and that was great. I learned as much from observing her, hearing what she was saying, observing the coaching she's getting. That's not just coaching for her, that's coaching for me too. So, so I really enjoyed that, where before doing the program, I don't know if I would have thought about that. I'd be like, wait a second, I don't just get me time, like I have to share the time with someone else, but actually it's one of those things where it's not a takeaway, it's multiplication.
Oh, that's a really good observation. And then the last question I usually ask during our celebrations is, if you cross paths with another writer at a library program or in your group of friends, and they were really struggling with writing, why would you recommend the writing gym as a good solution to a writing problem?
For a few reasons. First, it helps with creating the commitment, right? Like actually creating the commitment to make the time, to carve out the time, instead of just use the excuse we all have, which I just don't have enough time. Another one is that, along with that, the different modules that talk about some of the neuroscience behind the writing process, so that those experiences help to remove the objection, remove the fear, and also to then find creativity. I found the writing prompts were quite helpful in overcoming blocks. And then some of the tactics that you would give in the one-on-one sessions as well for specific problems in the development of the book. It was helpful to, it just speeds it up. Otherwise, it's not that I can't work through these problems of the novel myself, I can, but instead of being 8 weeks, we're going to be taking, well, gosh, at my pace, 8 years.
That's wonderful, Steve. Thank you so much for sharing your experience with us and for allowing us to celebrate you. There is so much to celebrate in how you've changed as a writer, how you've grown as a writer. You found joy. Your book is done. You're headed into a great summer of revision. We're going to touch base in the fall and get that toward publishables. I'm really excited for that, to celebrate that with you. Just a lot of positivity and so much good work.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Until next time, happy writing.
Yeah.